Alright, so just in a new instance of Blender here, we can just go ahead and delete all the default objects. And we'll go ahead and we'll import the same FBX that we imported into Quixel. So just bring that in here. And in our shading tab, I'm just going to switch over to Cycles. I'm going to bring in an HDRI. I'm not going to do anything fancy with the lighting here, and I'm just going to bump it up just to make everything look a little bit more visible. And I'm going to change the background to be transparent. Cool, so we can go ahead and make a new shader for this helmet here, so we can just call this like helmet. And we'll bring in an image texture. And we'll just go ahead and bring in our albedo here. Plug that into the base color of our principled shader. And then we'll bring in our control map. Now, a control map's going to look a little bit funky. It's all, you know, various reds and blues and purples, yada, yada, yada. And if you remember, what we've done is we packed our metalness and roughness into a single map. So what we need to do, first of all, is we need to change our color space to non-color. And then we want to get a separate color node. And then you'll see we get our roughness and our metalness pulled out of the respective channels that we packed them into. And if you packed your ambient occlusion into the blue channel, I've just done it here, then you'll also get that. So we can go ahead, plug our red into our roughness and our green into our metalness. And you'll see that starts to define things, but it all looks a bit muddy because we still need our normal map. We'll bring this in. We also want to change this to non-color because it's not affecting any of the color properties of our shader. And we can plug that into the normal and it looks absolutely terrible, and that's because we need to get a normal map node and plug that in between. Cool, so now we have something that resembles the textures that we had in Quixel. So it's looking nice. It's got all of our defined texture values on this thing now. One of the problems is that here, where we have our lights, they are like this solid diffuse material where we want them to be glass. So what we can do is we can go ahead and we can make a mask to define what's glass and what's an emission shader. So if we just head over to our UV editing here, I'm just going to do this quickly because for some reason I've got a sharp on this edge. I've got no idea why. Just go ahead and get rid of that, clean that up. And I know I've made a mistake on my model with the emission planes that I've duplicated on the inside. So assuming you've done a better job of managing this than I have, you would have unwrapped these already. I'm just going to do it now rather hastily because I don't know what happened with mine, but I just completely lost track of where they were. So I'm just going to scale these in over here, like so. Alright. Now, what we want to do is in our text tools again, I'm just going to make a 4K map. Actually, I'll test 2K, see how it looks. And what we want is we just want a 4-color ID mask. So we want red, green, red, blue, green, and one that's just completely black. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we'll L select the visor, and we'll just assign the red. It's going to make everything red, but it's okay, we can fix that up in a bit. Go ahead, select these middle vertices here for the parts of the lights that should be glass, and we're just going to Control and plus, select all these, and we can make these ones green. It doesn't actually matter what color they are. And then on our UV maps here, where you'll have the lights, which hopefully you handled better than I did, we can just assign these to be blue. Cool, so this isn't quite what we want, so we'll go ahead and we'll select the blue and we'll select the green channel, then we'll just use L to select the visor. Just going to go to face select mode, going to Control I to invert everything, and then we'll just assign black to all the other colors. Cool. So with that done, what we'll do is we will go to our baking, go to base color, and we'll just bake out this map and see how things look. Cool, so I just want to do a test here. I'm just going to make a new material. Actually, what I should do, what would have been smarter, we'll duplicate this, we'll remove all the materials from this one here, and we'll put the helmet material on here. I just want to test how the pixelation looks on this mask. Mainly on this area here. Yeah, it's a little bit pixelated, but I think it might be passable. What I'm going to do, you don't have to do this, but if I made better UVs, I probably could have avoided this. But I'm just going to bake this at 4K, highly unnecessary. But it's just going to remove the pixelation because unfortunately my UVs for these lights here isn't fantastic, so that's my own fault. But I'm just going to save this as helmet mask, and I'm going to save this with my textures, not as one of my bakes, as this is going to be a mainline texture that we use. So we'll save that, and we can just go ahead, delete that version of the helmet. And I'll just go load this one in. Cool. Alright, so what this is going to let us do is it's going to let us define what material should go where. At the moment, the red for the visor is not going to make a whole lot of sense, though I'm going to make a follow-up optional tutorial about how to use that with custom colors for not only the visor, but also the rest of the coloring on the helmet. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to, once again, we're going to get a separate color node. And we want to actually leave this as sRGB. I know this isn't actually affecting any of our colors per se, but we're using it purely for masking, so it's fine to leave it as sRGB. I'm going to bring in a mix shader, and we will plug the green into our factor. We're not going to worry about the red for just now. We'll plug our principled BSDF into the top socket, and we'll just get a glass shader here. So now you see we've actually got glass defined on this part of the lights. And so we can also go ahead and plug the normal into here, and if you want you can plug the albedo and the roughness into the roughness sockets here. Normally I just leave it as is, but you're free to do as you please there. So we're going to grab another mix shader and duplicate this over here. You can, of course, use the emission down here, though personally I much prefer using mix shaders for emission. I just find it gives me more control over the shader properties. And so we'll plug our blue into the factorial for the mix shader. We'll grab an emission node, and we'll plug that into the bottom socket there. And I'm just going to bring the strength of this up to like 8. So now we have light nicely sort of shooting through here, but it looks a little bit iffy in all honesty. So I know one thing that we can do to make this better, and once again we could have done this earlier on in the process, but once again I'm just showing you how I handle all these things. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to go and select these middle vertices again. And I'm just going to go Control Plus on these, and I'm actually just going to separate this by selection, which probably seems a little bit weird, but just bear with me. With these, we're going to put a solidify modifier on these, and we're just going to have to adjust the thickness. I'm going to just throw 2 zeros into the front here. And let's just have a look at this. Yeah, so it's a bit better. It's definitely way too glossy at the moment, which is a problem. So I'm just going to bring the roughness up. Let's go 0.2, see how that looks. Yeah, that sort of diffuses the light a little bit more, maybe even 0.4. Probably too much, 0.25 maybe. That looks good. Alright, so the reason that we want to throw a solidify modifier on this is without it you sort of get this... to my memory, it's called a fishbowling effect, where essentially the shader reads everything on the inside of the just one-sided faces that we have for the mesh as all being full of glass, pretty much. So it's almost like a completely dense thing of glass. And by adding a bit of thickness to it, it properly defines where there's glass and where there's not glass for the mesh. I could be wrong on that description, but that's my memory of how this works. So we'll just go ahead, we'll apply that solidify modifier, and then what we can do is just join that back into the mesh so it's all one coherent thing. You don't need to worry about dissolving the duplicate vertices along here, as the normals and everything will still work, even though we've gone and pulled the mesh apart a little bit there. But so now we have nice glass defined and the lights defined. And in all honesty, what I'm going to do is just another change, because I never seem to be able to land on my work and just enjoy it for what it is. I'm just going to select all these here, and I'm just going to scale them down a little bit. I'm just going to use individual origins, and I'm just going to scale across everything but the X, no, everything but the Y. Just going to bring these down a bit, make them a little bit less. Maybe it is alright. Don't want to make them any bigger, that's for sure. No, I think I might leave it as is. I think it's fine. Cool. Alright. And so with that done, you should now have a nicely textured Master Chief helmet in Blender with properly defined material masks. And yeah, you should be rather proud of what we've made here. So at some point, I do want to get around to making a complete tech suit and armor modeling course, as well as texturing to follow up. I don't know quite when that will be done, though if you want updates on it all, please make sure to go ahead and, if you haven't already, go and join the Discord channel where you can get help and support for everything that we've covered across the modeling and texturing, and I'll give you updates for when that's going to come out, and it will also allow you to get assistance once that tutorial series is out to get any help where you need for that. But that wraps it up for this. I hope you guys have enjoyed this series, and I hope you're happy with the finished result that you have.